Hi, Karen. Good to see you.
Hey,
Hello,
it's nice to see
Karen.
Dad.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. It really took a computer man an hour and a half to fix my computer.
Is that
So I
right?
could, yeah.
Wow.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello, Karen. I'm hoping mine's gonna work. I never know.
Yeah.
Hi, Jenny.
So, Phyllis, I don't think I ever got the information for my questions about the housing. Did I get that?
Was Philip going to reach out to you afterwards?
I think I was supposed to get some information to reach him.
Okay, I'll check with him.
I've been so busy, I kind of forgot it. to tell you the truth.
Guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble. My internet is saying it's unstable, so I made a hotspot. And now I think that's working better. So hopefully that'll keep me logged in.
Jenny, did you get the email I sent you about the clerk approved my request to have the annual report presentation on February 3rd or something like that?
Yeah, I think I put it in my calendar.
Okay,
And I just
great.
put 1 o'clock on to when question mark kind of.
Yeah, it's usually like in the mid-afternoon, you know, they have the public comment period and news from the supervisors, and then when business starts, we're usually one of the first.
Yeah, I feel like it's usually been around 3
Yeah.
o'clock-ish, something like that, but I just blocked off that whole chunk
Yeah.
of time. So we'll see if we're in person by then or still doing Zoom, or who knows what will happen.
Who knows? It's really interesting going to the Board of Supervisors meeting, you know, virtually. You know, they do it really well, but
Yeah,
it's different.
Yeah.
it is different. All our planning commission meetings are the same way, and it's very different, especially with public comment, which is an important part of the process. And there are times though when we have really short meetings or a work session where it's nice not to have to drive for me all the way to Crozet, you know, to go. But for most meetings, I'd rather if we, you know, could be in person. But we're doing the best we can with our situation, so we're still working through the process and getting things moving to the board. That's what's important.
Yeah. Hi, Mary. Hi, Amy.
Okay.
Mary, how's teaching going?
Well, I feel like I stay one step ahead of trouble. Barely. It's a lot of work. It's a completely different work than it has ever been before. But when I have the kids in front of me, I feel like it goes really well. I see a lot of learning. I see a lot of progress, and I have the benefit that 2/3 of the kids I work with are kids I worked with last year. So we already had an existing relationship, and I think that helps. We weren't starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, it's mentally exhausting.
What grade do you teach?
I'm a reading specialist, and I have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
I see. And Amy, how are your kids doing?
Well, you know, they'll probably be joining me shortly. I think Mary's so right. I wish that one is in Monticello, he's 9th grade, And then my other child is in 7th grade. So they're all brand new teachers. And I think it's been kind of tough. But I will say with our 7th grader, some of the teachers I know from our other child. So there's kind of relationship. But I would say there is learning going on. They're doing a lot of work. So I'm grateful. I think it's going much better than it did at the end of last year, for sure.
Well, that's interesting. My daughter in Richmond says her son is making all good grades. She said, I found out one thing. He has to do his lesson and he's attentive to the computer and he doesn't get into all of this socializing. So his grades is all A's. And she's like, there's some good out of this virtual learning. So, because he likes to play sports. And if he doesn't keep his grades up, she threatens him with the sports. And she said, Austin has been remarkable at the top of his level since this virtual learning. So there was something good out of it. Everybody else is like, oh, well, we don't know.
It does make me laugh when I hear people make comments like, oh, these teachers are so lazy. They just want to stay home. And I'm like,
Thank you.
it would be so much easier for me to just go to work right now. Are you kidding? Like, I wish that we could in a way, but I also don't, because I feel like I don't necessarily believe it's safe. But for anybody who thinks teachers are just sitting at home doing nothing, it's like so far from the truth. This is the most work I've ever done in my life. And I went to college 3 times.
Yeah. You hear that a lot.
So Jenny, I think this is it. Ray still has a schedule conflict. I reached out to her earlier today just to kind of get a sense of where things are with her. But so I think we're all here.
Okay, well, let's get started, and thanks for everyone for being here. And since we have everyone here, it looks like, but Ray, let's get our minutes approved. And so we have, I believe it's August minutes and September minutes. We can take them separate. If someone wants to make a motion to approve the August minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the August minutes.
I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the August minutes pass, and then we'll take the September minutes if someone wants to do a motion.
I move to accept the minutes for September.
Second.
And Catherine seconds,
I'll
so
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right, so we've got August and September minutes approved. And then Phyllis, did you want to go through the administrative part of the informational items? And I know sometimes members have questions. We can do that now, or we can go ahead with the presentation, whatever the group prefers.
Why don't we go ahead with the info items, because we didn't get a chance to entertain questions from last month's as well. So I want to be sure that we cover that. So I'll just take any questions from either last month's or this month's set of informational items.
After reading the information, I am seeing the heroes for hospitals and nursing homes, which I think they are heroes, but I think we've got heroes right in social services too.
There's actually a proposal in the Attorney General's office that was submitted by Virginia Department of Social Services to name our child welfare workers and adult protective service workers as first responders.
Very good.
So we'll see what happens with that, because they certainly are.
Yeah. That was a lot of information on those pages.
So the foster care people, they began the first of this month going back into homes?
Not just the foster care, all of the child welfare staff are now required to conduct their business face-to-face. So that means home visits, that means CPS investigations, foster care visits. And I'm going to look at my great child welfare staff on the screen. If I'm saying anything incorrectly, please chime in and correct me. But I think when the pandemic first hit, the feds allowed the states to waive that and allowed to have some of their visits be conducted virtually, but that's now been taken away. I think the family partnership meetings are still happening virtually. Is that right, Kim?
Yes, those are still virtual.
Other questions, comments?
I have a question about item number 2 from this month's information items. I need to scan back to it. It was about payment standards, which are the basis for the subsidy that the clients receive for rent. So I read this a couple times and I still am not sure if I'm understanding what this is saying happened. Is it saying that they advocated for the people receiving a housing subsidy to receive more? What exactly happened that was so good?
I'm not sure I understand it completely either, but it has something to do with the standard is set to be a certain percentage of the rent. Well, as the rent goes up, if that percentage stays the same, then they get less subsidy. So if we raise the percentage, then as the rents go up, then the subsidy doesn't go down. Does that make more sense?
Yes.
And it was a lot of work on the staff's part to do the research and figure out what the impacts on the clients were. So I know Philip was very pleased with what they had presented. It was a very thoughtful argument to do this. So I had no trouble supporting it.
Thank you.
I had just a comment, I guess, about the adult services section of for the informational items that we got for this month. And I just wanted to thank the people that take the time to submit that information to you. And I think for all the sections, we really always get great information. It's really good stuff for us to be able to review prior to the meetings. And then having sets of data is really important, but also when we hear those kind of personal stories, I think that is really helpful, even though it's done in a way to protect, confidentiality and things like this. It's reading those two stories in particular, it just really jumped out at me, the challenges that workers are helping families go through and being creative and trying to come up with different solutions and helping work with those folks who work through the barriers. I thought those really jumped out at me. And it's really nice to get that sort of personal touch to it, as much as getting the data sets is also really important. So I appreciate that. And I know that workers and people have to take the time to get that information to you each month. And I think as a group, it's really important for us to have that. So we appreciate that very much.
You're welcome. I was actually very touched by some of the stories this month too. It really speaks to the individualization that our staff, individualized services that our staff give our clients. It's not just what policy says, but really taking into account who the person is, what the family needs, and being creative and thinking outside of the box and really advocating. It's very inspiring to hear those stories.
Did anyone have any other questions about last month's or this month's?
So I did want to just reiterate my invitation. If you'd like to attend next week's all staff meeting, given the commissioner is planning to visit, please let me know and I'll send you I'll have Lisa send you this. No, not who sends the staff meeting Zoom link. I'll get whoever sends us the staff meeting Zoom link to send it to you as well. I've been here since 1998, and I don't ever remember a commissioner attending our staff meeting. So it's a little intimidating, but it's exciting to be able to share with them. And then I just also wanted to highlight what there's Ray. Good. What we're doing with other departments to administer the CARES funding in our community. I think we've been doing a lot of great projects with that funding, and DSS has been kind of front and center with that work as well as the Office of Equity and Inclusion. Hi, Ray, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, it's good to see everybody too. I was just on the phone part, but I finally got to my computer. It's nicer to be able to actually see.
Yeah, well, good. We missed you.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Because you brought up the CARES Act, could you remind us again how much was appropriated to the social service? Has that been confirmed? How much money? And part of it will be, I think, for housing. If you could go through that again.
Basically, well, first of all, the CARES money came to the county in different ways. So, for example, our housing office got CARES money directly from HUD. But then there was a allocation given to the county. And the first one was upwards to $9 million. And I think that the county has received a second allocation, and I'll turn to Doug if that's incorrect. But basically the county executive's office determined how much funding would go to the human services bucket, if you will, how much would go to economic development, how much would go to asking for reimbursement for our COVID-related costs within the county. And so there were different amounts. The initial allocation that was given to the human services area was about $2,500. I mean, $2,500,000. And so that's that amount is how we've where we've gotten the funding to give to United Way to administer emergency financial assistance. We are in the middle of running a second round of community lift grants to nonprofit agencies that are providing housing, financial stability, and food security services. And then we've also allocated a certain funding to, for example, the Boys and Girls Club and the Piedmont Family Y, who have stood up virtual learning centers to help the kids who don't have internet access, or whose parents really are challenged in doing the virtual learning at school. And then we're in the process of some other ideas, things like we recommended some funding go to the Thomas Jefferson area Coalition for the Homeless to help offset the costs of hoteling some of the homeless at La Quinta. And then, of course, there's also our IT department has been using some of the funding for broadband purposes. So there's lots of different projects, and human services is just a small portion of it. Doug, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Just acknowledging between the two rounds is approximately $19 million of federal money coming to the county itself. That is, as you explained, is separate from money coming directly to certain agencies or to you through the housing division. The determination of how that ultimately is allocated is by the Board of Supervisors, not the county executive, although our incident management team, the county executive, make a recommendation. And it's obviously intended to be as best we can to maximize its benefit to the community in a number of different ways, because the impact is so significant as it relates to the loss of jobs and impact on the business community, as well as implications for health and welfare of the many people in the county. So and it is surprising. Only other thing I would say is there are considerable compliance issues, and so and then procurement rules, and it's really hard to spend a large amount of other people's money really fast. That's been a real challenge for us, but we are obviously continue to be determined to get it all out the door as best we can, including supplanting some of our own funding that we can from a compliance standpoint locally. Anyway, so that the taxpayers are also benefiting from that. So that's all that I would say. If there's any questions I can answer.
Thanks, Doug. Any other questions, comments? All right, well, allow me to introduce our awesome presenters this afternoon. So on my left, I'm not sure on your screen, we have Megan Chertoka, who is the supervisor of our Family Preservation Services unit. That unit provides foster care prevention services as well as child protective ongoing services. And then over here on the right, I've got Kim Harris, who is a senior family preservation worker. And is your official title senior family finder, or what is your official title?
I'm calling myself the FPM coordinator.
Okay. All right. And then Andrea Perez, is that how you pronounce it? And she is also with the Family Preservation Unit. And they are going to talk with us about family engagement and family finding at Albemarle County Social Services. So is one of you going to present the PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes, I can screen share.
Do I need to give you permission to do that or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think it is allowing me to do so.
Okay. So before you get started, I'd like for all the advisory board members to introduce themselves and also to let you know what district they're from. So I'll go ahead and call out. Catherine, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Catherine Burton, and I'm from the Sammy Miller District. Liz Palmer is my supervisor.
And Karen?
Karen Harge, and I'm from the Jack Jewett District.
Jenny?
I'm Jenny Moore, and I represent the Whitehall District, and Ann Malik is the supervisor for my district.
And Mary?
I'm Mary McIntyre. I'm from the Rio District, and Ned Galloway is my supervisor.
And Amy?
Amy Laufer, and I'm Ravanna with B. Lepisto as my supervisor.
And Ray?
I'm Ray Juhan. I'm with the Scottsville District, and Donna Price is my supervisor.
All right, I'll turn it over to you all. I'm going to mute myself.
Andrea, I'm hoping that you can make that just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I am trying to move this so I can make it full screen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, it's really good to be here again. I know that I've been able to meet you all before, and I'm excited to be back to talk to you about something that is very important to me and something I feel passionate about, and that is family engagement and family finding at DSS. It is not a one and done kind of a thing, but a continual process. And so the three of us wanted to take advantage of this time to be able to share with you how we do that here at DSS. Sorry, Andrea, I'm ready. Okay, so basically underlying all of the work that we do here, not just with family engagement and family finding, are these core values here about family engagement. And that is that, we believe that children and communities deserve to be safe. We believe in family and child and youth driven practice. Kids do best when they're raised with their families. They need permanency with a permanent family, and that partnering with others to support the child and family success in a system that's family focused, child centered, and community based is the way to go. That's how we get people invested. And we believe that how we do the work is as important as what we do. So that underlies everything.
Yeah, so working off of those values, we have this really great tool of family finding and being able to use that in child welfare. And so how we're able to use that is use resources that are tailored around family finding and techniques to help families rebuild or sometimes even build up relationships within their own family unit. I often think that families think that DSS are the only people that are in their lives and the providers that we're kind of connecting them with, but we want the families and especially the children to know that there's more people outside of us that are part of their family and a part of their team and that are in their corner. So family finding can be used in that way. We also use family finding to reduce trauma with the children that are entering foster care, especially if they're entering foster care and they don't have a family member to be placed with. So family finding can be used to connect children to their natural support and for them to live with their family in any situation where that's possible. When appropriate, we want to engage with the family and their contacts to grow their natural supports for the entire family. This isn't a situation where we would use family finding to just place a child with their family, but it's also a really great opportunity for the family to also expand and make those connections that maybe were not there before. And the common goal between all the units that are using family finding is to reduce the amount of time the children are in foster care through concurrent planning, meaning at the same time that the child's in foster care and working with their foster care worker, that the family finder can come in and identify family at the same time. So family finding is a tool that requires continued development, refined processes, and improvement identification in order to be successful. And this was put there because it is really a unique thing to have and to be able to do, and something that is resourceful, where we have this toolbox full of things where each worker kind of can take out what they need in the moment, and family finding can be one of them. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be reevaluated and looked at to see what can be changed to make it unique for each case that it's being used for. So right now, family finding looks like engaging a family's natural support system, not only as a responsibility for the family finder, but also each worker that has a family that they're working with, that it is also their responsibility to do some of the family finding work as well. We also have dedicated family finder positions, such as myself, that do more intensive family finding and have the availability to do that. And then we are also developing a new family finding consult process. So trying to figure out right now, due to just capacity and the caseload, how do we bring in family finding into each of our cases while we're still kind of figuring out this new process and what we can realistically do. And then in addition, have the emergency family finding response team EFERT and that process and developing that consult process. And so in the meantime, in order to work on those two things, we've piloted 4 foster care cases with intensive family finding to date, and we're still working on those. Some opportunities for growth within family finding is, again, creating a process that can at least provide a framework, not only for the family finder, but for other workers that may be unsure of what family finding looks like or how it can be used. Something that comes up time and time again when we're trying to develop this and improve it is that we have to be mindful that this tool is not a one size fits all. While we may use some of the same strategies, just like foster care, we may be working kind of the same timeline, but it's going to look different. Each family is different and unique. And so it really gives us the opportunity to figure out a scaffold for what we can do with our cases. Another area in which we're continuing to grow is promoting another tool such as GenoPro, which is a genogram tool that can be downloaded and that can be used for information gathering, engagement, and permanency. So we're able to work with identified family and the child to map out the family, kind of like a family tree, but also have the capacity to enter in really intricate details of the family themselves and medical history. We can do a lot with that, but we just started rolling some of that out. And so we have some trainings coming up starting this month to implement GenoPro across the child welfare unit. And then another thing where we're finding where family finding has room to grow isn't just engaging with workers across all the teams and understanding that this is new and that this is a shift and that change is hard. And especially during right now, while we have this pandemic and we're kind of switching gears, that this too is coming and that we can support one another in making this process improved and successful.
And so family finding feeds right into family partnership meetings. Not all of these are, isolated approaches that we're taking, and we're going to speak more to our emergency family finding response team in a bit, but they're all integrated. And so what are FPMs, or family partnership meetings? And those are meetings, they're evidence-based, collaborative, and engaging team meetings that occur at key decision points during the family's involvement with DSS. And so these meetings are designed to engage those who have connections to the kids and the family and who care about them and want to and can collaborate in making decisions to make sure that kids' needs are met, that they're safe, that they have permanency, and that they are doing well. And so these meetings, we address functional strengths, but also identify some of the needs and the concerns in a very open format. And my role in the agency is to facilitate those meetings. And so in my prep with this, which I'll talk to in a little bit, there's a lot of family finding and a lot of effort that goes into making these meetings successful. And so why do we believe in family partnership meetings? Well, we know that children do best when they're connected to family. Even if kids are in foster care, when they're aging out, where do they want to go? They want to go right back home. So we've got to keep them connected. Even if they can't be there at that time, family is important and it's key to their success. And we know that family participation improves decision-making and outcomes for children. Those who are involved in the decision-making process are invested in what they are choosing to do, as opposed to someone telling you what to do. If you have some input into that, you're more likely to kind of follow through. And we all, we believe that families have strengths and they're the experts on themselves. We don't want to come in and tell families what to do. We need them to work with us and tell us about their families so that we can make plans with them. And teamwork's the best way to make decisions about child safety. It's hard to make these really big decisions alone in a bubble. And we believe that these decisions are better when you have others coming to the table with different perspectives to make these decisions. So when do family partnership meetings occur? Per policy, there's 5 points where we would convene an FPM. The first one is when there's a high risk or very high risk decision point, meaning that if there's children who are at risk of being placed outside the home or at risk of future abuse neglect, we're going to want to convene an FPM to help families to make a plan to avoid foster care and to build the family up. So we often do this at the point of transfer between a CPS assessment or an investigation as it's transferring over to CPS ongoing services. It's a way to be able to plan for the family with the family. We also have FPMs at an emergency removal decision point. So this is when the children cannot safely remain in the home and a plan needs to be made for where the kids are going to be. The goal is to keep them with family whenever possible. And so we're going to convene these meetings to see if there's family available to take the children in, or if they're already in care, if there's a plan to be able to have them exit immediately to family. So we'll pull that together to avoid children staying or coming into foster care. The other one is the permanency planning decision point. And this is in the foster care side of things. And so this is anytime there's an upcoming court hearing in the foster care timeline. This is to identify the permanency goal and review the progress towards those goals for kids. So before we submit a plan to court, we'll pull the team together, the family to the table, to talk about the progress and then make some recommendations. Same with the placement change decision point. Kids in foster care, if there's a placement disruption or a need for them to move, rather than moving the children and then telling parents later, if possible, we want to pull people to the table, family to the table, to talk about what's the next best option for this kiddo to that extent. And then the last one is a requested decision point. So anytime a parent requests an FPM, we will hold one. So we've done this even for court services units. If there's a youth who's at risk of foster care through the CHINS docket, we've had FPMs for those. We've done FPMs on some families that we're not necessarily serving, but families have requested. So we have the flexibility to do that. Okay. So how do family partnership meetings work? So the key is that there's a neutral facilitator who is facilitating the meeting. I facilitate most of the meetings that happen here, but there are times when I can't. And so we have a small pool of facilitators and we're working to improve or increase that pool, I should say. But this neutral facilitator kind of leads the discussion and keeps everyone focused. And so I will walk people through making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what the purpose is for the meeting. So we all know what we're working towards. And then I walk us through a conversation about the strengths and supports that the family has so that we can build on those. Then we talk about some of the concerns and the needs for the kids and the family. And then we take some time to really just brainstorm any ideas for how to support the family, whether that be ways family can support by checking in or actual services. It's not all service oriented. We have had family members, offer weekend childcare or offering to call in and check on a mom or dad every now and again. So it's not always about services or tangible things. Sometimes it's just to hear the voice of a family member. And then we take the time to develop a plan with those ideas, and we have some action steps about who's going to do what by when. So everyone's pretty clear with what's going to happen. We are projecting this plan live in the meetings as we're going through, so everybody can see what's being written. Everybody gets a copy of the plan at the end, so it's all pretty transparent. So who attends the FPMs? These are parents, caretakers, legal guardians, grandparents, any supports that the parents identify. I don't need to go through this list as you guys can see it. But we're really looking at any and all supports and connections that folks have to these kiddos who want to be invested in their well-being and planning for their permanency and safety. So siblings, and then any professionals who are involved. We've had guardian ad litems, CASAs are regularly attending these meetings. And we look beyond just family, but also looking at, again, who those supports are for the family. So if there's, a neighbor or a teacher or anybody that has a connection to these kiddos that the family identifies. One of the things that we do in prep is I ask them, who are your people? Who's your village? Who do you want to come? And so that's kind of where the family finding piece comes in too, is that we don't just go down the list of who are the service providers working with the family. We want this to really be engaging with family. And so to do that, we need to ask and keep asking, even when they say they won't come. we keep asking the question and we get people to the table, and that's when you have the really productive, powerful meetings. So since the pandemic, everything seems to have changed with FPMs. We used to be having these meetings in person where we would have food and beverages and try to have a welcoming room for these meetings, but can't do that now. So our meetings are now being held through Zoom, which poses additional challenges in that not everybody is familiar with Zoom. And so a lot of my time is spent in prep, sort of not just prepping them for the purpose and the structure of the meeting and helping them to sort of think about what they want to share in the meeting, but about, do you have internet? Will you have privacy during this meeting? Do you know how to connect to Zoom? And I spend a lot of time doing practice Zoom calls with families. So prior to the meetings, we'll set up a test run. I help them connect. I walk them through the process. So there's a lot of mini Zooms, if you will, before the actual FPM to make sure that we have connections for this. You know, and FPMs, what we're finding is that it's easier to involve more people in the meeting because nobody has to physically make that commute to come to the space. So we're able to engage family that way, but it's also harder to read the room, if you will, because I'm sharing my screen. And when I do that, as you can see here, everyone's picture gets a little bit smaller. So it's kind of hard to see and read emotions and kind of read the room, if you will. So it's a little bit more challenging. And I'm trying to read this bottom bullet, which is really small, Andrea, I'm sorry. Yes, and so some of the innovative things that I guess we've done during this is people who have not had internet or good connection to that effect, we have had folks come into the office and we've been able to set up a computer in a meeting room where they can be by themselves and join the meeting and have internet. So we've been able to meet families kind of where they are, or have families who maybe don't have good internet or don't know how to use Zoom. We'll plan for them to go to somebody else's house so they can sit together and be able to participate together. So we're trying to work around some of those challenges, but our numbers have not gone down. We are plugging away and we're continuing to engage families and we are continuing to have these meetings.
So as Andrea and Kim have referenced through parts of the presentation, we also have an emergency family finding response team that we refer to as EFERT. And while family finding practice and family partnership meetings are best practices that agencies across Virginia are using, the EFERT team is a way of doing family finding that is unique to Albemarle and was developed by our staff here to try to bring together workers and family members in crisis situations to try to identify a family's natural support system and engage them in that crisis to hopefully avoid a child being placed outside of their family with strangers in foster care. So the emergency family finding response team is both a teaching tool for workers and a family engagement tool that staff can use in their casework. And the EFERT team, it is comprised of senior workers from the 3 mandated programs that our agency has: Child Protective Services, Family Preservation, Foster Care, and also Andrea, our family finding position. And that while these are the leaders of the process and the experts in doing this family finding work, it's also in an emergency a high volume of work to find and engage relatives, more than just one worker or even a couple of workers could do in order to be successful. So every EFERT team is also unique to that family and includes the referring worker, the potential receiving workers on the family preservation and foster care teams, and then also if our school-based programs are involved, they will be a part of the EFERT. And what EFERT does is basically exhaust all possible options to find and engage families in a crisis situation, which includes talking to the children, talking to the caretakers, talking with extended families, doing case mining and record reviews, collaborating with the school and benefits workers, using a variety of public search features to try to locate names that could be connected with the case, and then doing everything within the team's power to engage these individuals and assess what they might be able to offer to help mitigate the crisis. So what we'd like to also do is share with you all some examples of how these practices have been effective in engaging families. And the first example is a situation that involved a case that was transitioning from Child Protective Services to either family preservation or foster care, depending on what plan the family could come up with in a family partnership meeting. And in this particular case, there were 6 children, and it was a blended family. And CPS had the children across 4 different safety plans that were temporary in nature, but could not be permanent. And in the meeting, there was concern that all 6 of these children would end up in foster care because those who they were with could not keep them longer term, and they could not be safely reunited with their parents at that time. So through these processes, we were able to work with the family, and in the family partnership meeting, come up with a plan where the grandparents actually moved in with the parents and shared custody. And that allowed these children who would have otherwise ended up in foster care to remain in their home and in their community and to be served through the family preservation team. And that case has actually ended up with the parents receiving full custody of all of the children back.
I guess, Andrew, you want to go? Or you want me to?
You can go.
So another example was with a youth who was foster care. She was going to be turning 18 years old and would be aging out of the foster care system, and needed a plan to be created to help her be set up for success that included not only identifying supports and services to help her, but also identifying, developing, and maintaining family connections and a support system for her. And this was a young lady who had she'd been in foster care for years and spent most of her time in a residential or group home. She couldn't be maintained in the community, and family had kind of just sort of fallen off the radar. Her parents hadn't been consistently involved in her life, especially after she came into care. And so she was kind of just in foster care with no connections and no plan for where she was going to go. And so we were going to convene a family partnership meeting to help her to prepare for options and choices for what to do when she turned 18. And so in preparing for that FPM, there was exhaustive family finding efforts done. And so in doing that, we were able to find relatives, not just in Virginia, but outside of Virginia. And in finding these relatives, this was a lot of work. It involved continual questions, talking to this youth, talking to family, talking to lots of people, and not taking no for an answer, because each person that I spoke to was, of the impression they won't come to the table, they don't care, they haven't been involved, that's a waste of time. And I just kept going. And so I would call one person and I would talk to them and I would express the emergent nature and then say, and who else, and who else? And that's the question to be asked. You just keep going, who else, and you keep making the calls. And so at the start of this involvement, there had been 5 family members who were identified, and 2 were the parents who weren't really involved. And through family finding efforts, we were able to find 13 additional family members. And at the FPM, we actually had 19 people there for this young lady. And typically it would only be the uncle and the grandmother who would show up. And when we opened this Zoom FPM, her face lit up. And the first 15 minutes of this meeting, I'm not kidding you, was like a family reunion. It was, oh, hey, Aunt so-and-so, hey. and just the connection. And she was so thrilled and so happy to see that these people had come through for her and were there to help her. And it was a very moving experience, and kind of showed that people will come to the table. You can't write them off or assume they're too busy or working. You just keep going. And so, you know, what ended up happening was that in this FPM, we had a plan. This grandfather came forward from Georgia and said, send her to me. And she said, I don't know, I think I might want to leave the state. And he ended up buying her a laptop. Part of the plan was purchasing plane tickets so that she could go down and visit him. And she ultimately made the decision to move to Georgia to be closer to her aunt, her uncle, and her grandfather and have a new start. And so she had an exit plan from foster care that otherwise would have resulted in her aging out of the system with no supports somewhere in Charlottesville, trying to find her way. And what came out of that FPM was a support system of people who agreed to check in with her and followed up and offered her probably more than she could have imagined.
Yeah, and then thanks, Kim. And I also had a family finding case where I had 2 young girls. And I think the uniqueness of this one is that I never met the family. I never met the girls in person or virtually or on a phone call. And so I find that pretty unique in order to do the family finding work. But 2 young girls that are sisters who were in temporary custody with their grandmother, and they had already been removed from their mother. And so we were approaching a disposition hearing, and there was a concern that the placement with their grandmother was going to disrupt and that the girls would need to enter foster care. And so that's when I came on board to identify kinship foster options. And ultimately a plan was made to keep the girls with their grandmother. But to back it up a little bit, again, the uniqueness of this particular case is that we were able to find family when the family option was in question. But we were also able to identify backup kinship options where we really saw that the older sister's support came through and really were knew the family, or at least knew of one of the girls, and really wanted to be there for them. And so the options of having natural supports of the older sister really allowed for us to make connections that these girls could have outside of, remaining with their grandmother, which was amazing that they didn't have to move again or be placed with someone else, but the fact that they have these supports put in place and that they could be contacted again should they need anything, they're available. And we didn't walk away from this case, and we didn't walk away from doing family finding with just one backup. Like, we had 2, almost 3 backup options should one of them fall through. And I really think that speaks to just the connection that within the family finding process and the kinship work, that we're able to build relationships and have those really engaging conversations. Again, not only with family members, but people in the community who, work with or have knowledge of these families and know people that know people, to, again, come together and really know and act on what's in the best interest of the children.
So while those qualitative stories really demonstrate the impact and are quite powerful, the data associated with the outcomes of these practices is also quite powerful. That I'll just highlight a couple of points in this, and that is last fiscal year, we, through a combination of efforts associated with family finding, we were able to keep 75% of the children who were at imminent risk of entering foster care out of foster care and in the custody of other relatives or natural kin, who we were then, in most cases, able to continue to serve through our family preservation team. That In total, last fiscal year, of the kids at imminent risk of entering foster care, 83% of them ended up with family as opposed to stranger foster care. And to highlight that even more, when we look at our kinship foster care data, which is children who are in foster care but placed with relatives or fictive kin as their foster parents, 38% of our foster youth are with kinship foster parents, whereas the state's average is only 8%. And additionally, I want to highlight that this work takes a lot of time. And last fiscal year, we had 151 family partnership meetings with almost 2,000 participants total. And that this took a significant amount of time, obviously of family and community members, but also staff spent a combined 2,264 hours in FPMs or FPM related activity last year. And we commit to that because the importance of doing this work is so significant for the children and the families that we serve. And we really do think it's a fundamental value here at ACDSS. And while we are recognizing that we're in a high performance agency and continually improving, some of the next steps in this process are that we have our process improvement management team reviewing our emergency family finding response team and family finding consult processes to help us find ways to better serve the community and enhance those processes.
Yeah, and in the family finding realm of things, where we hope to be going and where we're almost kind of in the process right now is we're continuing to research family finding models. And one of them is called 30 Days to Family, among other things, but kind of honing in on 30 Days to Family and what that means, and what this program is really saying that we should be getting kids with relatives or with family, someone that they know, within 30 days of entering foster care. And so while that is a goal, we're certainly kind of, again, working on process improvement and figuring out how we can fine tune this family finding process to hopefully get there one day. Not to say that 30 Days to Family is the end all be all, but it certainly provides good framework as to what we can do, especially with the cases that we're piloting right now and using some of their tools in their toolkit to transfer over. At the same time, my communication with other organizations and agencies that are using evidence-supported programs and models, and looking at the strengths and challenges and barriers of what their program is enduring, while trying to share the common goal of reducing the amount of time children are in foster care and or prevent foster care if possible. And as I mentioned before, GenoPro, again, that's a tool that we have recently been trying to roll out, and that training is up and coming for that. And to also work on family mapping and using that as an engagement tool, again, not only for the children, but also for the family and as workers to use in a collaborative setting to help us reach out to more people and bring them in for the benefit of the family.
And of course, we're also looking to expand our capacity at incorporating family finding across the child welfare continuum, not necessarily just in foster care or at points of emergency. And so one of the things we're exploring is mobilizing family networks and safety planning. And so looking to start basically having rapid family meetings, which has a quicker turnaround time than your standard FPM, because these meetings we pull together immediately when a child's deemed unsafe, so that family can come together to create that safety plan. So right now, our FPMs are coming together after the imminent crisis has resolved, and then we're planning, or the child is safe, and then we're planning next steps. These would be a way to get in even sooner to get families to identify that safety plan in this team format to be able to plan for the child's safety. And while they may not be able to prevent foster care, it is something that we are looking to get into even earlier. Also looking to try to expand our concurrent planning and foster care, looking for ways to build, to increase capacity to find and engage relative placement options by partnering with foster care workers to vet these options and keep concurrent planning alive as opposed to it being sequential. The children are in care, we're working to get them home. If that doesn't work, then we'll start looking at relatives. We're wanting to do them at the same time so that it's being done concurrently and reducing the amount of time that kids are in foster care. So trying to improve that process to decrease the time that kids are in care, increase permanency for them. So those are some of the ways that we're looking to grow. And so I guess we can open it up if you have any questions for us in terms of what we've shared or what we're doing. We're happy to answer.
I don't have any questions. I only have admiration. You guys need a gold medal or a golden crown.
Andrea, why don't you stop screen sharing so we can see everybody? Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for that nice feedback.
That's great. Really great.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was wondering, I have a lot of stuff to say, and I echo what Catherine said. I think you guys, obviously you're, this takes a huge amount of time and commitment, and I know that probably each of you are capable of doing the work of like 3 or 4 people all at one time, and I think that's what's required. One of the comments I wanted to make was asking about the dedicated position, and I wondered how long have you guys had the dedicated family finding position?
So Phyllis might actually help me remember the exact time frame, whether it's been 2 or 3 years now, but it started as a temporary position that the Board of Supervisors authorized. And because of the success of the outcomes that we were seeing with having this position dedicated to helping with this work, it was actually able to be authorized as a permanent position after that first year.
I think it was around 2016, 2017 that we've got, and it was primarily motivated by the fact that our Children's Services Act funding was increasing exponentially. And what happens is, what drives that increase is when children enter foster care. And so we really launched this initiative of family finding as a way to keep kids out of care and also lower our CSA costs. And so again, like Megan said, the success was apparent. So the board supported a permanent position. So that was a line worker position. And then over the years, we've been able just to kind of shuffle things around and elevate it to a senior. And it sounds like now we've got not only Kim, but then Andrea's position as more dedicated for that service. So it's morphed over time, but it was around 2016, 2017.
Okay, great. I remember somewhere when it was a sort of temporary thing, and I just wanted to make sure, I think I had heard that had become a permanent position, because I think I've had the pleasure in the past of working with Kevin Campbell, who's done some of the family finding work. And so I'm sure some of you are familiar with him. And the idea of it isn't necessarily new, even though the tools are obviously constantly changing and allowing for people to tap into some of the resources that you talked about with the mapping and these sort of things. So I feel like the idea that I had worked with a group about that was more specific to what we're really working on is kids that are aging out and don't have any supports. But it seemed that the stumbling block, as always, was to find the funding to, put these ideas into action. And so I'm just really impressed with your presentation, and I feel like I know you'll have a continuing effort to refine and evolve this process. I think Kim's example that you gave of the young lady that was aging out, and you were able to use some of the resources to pull together the family planning meeting, and that she was able to move, even though it was out of the state at her choice. I think that's a great example of, that seems like another critical point. And I was kind of thinking back on, even in our informational items, that was something Phyllis had noted about having difficulty finding placement, foster care placement for teenagers. And I'm sure whatever age the child is that's coming into, that's having some sort of disruption, you're looking at family finding. But I think that seems like a key time when you have an older child or a teenager. And then, so that, I think that was a question I had for Kim, was how is that a time where maybe not for every teenager, but for the example you gave, where it was really important to almost loop back around and find out who maybe wasn't willing to come to the table previously for different reasons, could come to the table as the child had gotten older.
Yeah, so I think, one of the things that we want to do with all of our youth in foster care, particularly those older ones, is really get in there and figure out who their people are and where they're going. And ideally, in a perfect world, that would be done from the get-go, from day one. Of course, capacity to do the work and overload interferes, which is why it's so exciting that we've got a dedicated family finder position now to be able to expand that work. And I know that foster care now has a senior who will also be carrying some of that family finding responsibility. So if you ask me, I will always tell you it is a good idea to back up and ask family and bring people to the table from day one. It's just best practice, and it's what I would want to have done with my family. And I often, find myself saying that to some of the other workers and to families, like, God forbid I ever end up in a situation where my kids are in the system. I would want someone to ask me, who are my people? Who is my village? And not care that they're out of state. So I don't know if I'm specifically answering your question, but yes, I think that if we could have done it sooner, we would have. And in this particular case, there was a very brief emergency family finding response done early on that didn't yield a lot of results. And I think that early on, we've grown and we've learned a lot. And I think that back then, we took no for no. And so when mom said, I don't know who dad is, or, and this is just in general, or said, there's nobody, we would say, oh, okay, and move on. We've learned and we've grown, and that now we know that we can't take no. We, use public records to find out who may be related to who, based on commonalities and things that they share. And if parents aren't necessarily forthcoming with that, then we'll start making some cold calls to people who are shown to be connected and relatives. And we continue to push the envelope. So for this young lady, it is unfortunate that we weren't able to do anything sooner, or at least more in depth, but it is our goal moving forward to capture those youth who've been lingering in foster care and have nobody. And I'm now currently working with another foster care worker who is working with a youth who's going to be turning 21. So she's been engaging in fostering futures from 18 until now, and now she's really going to be done at 21, and she has a child of her own. And we're trying to identify what's next for you. You have a child, your mother is in on the West Coast, your family is in New Mexico. What do you have? And so, we're continually learning and growing. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I think I think it's great. I think, that's the best that you can do when, that wasn't maybe a resource that you had when that person was younger, but then as they're older, you can reassess and look at those things. I also think that you make some great points, like whether it's about family finding in general or the family partnership meetings, which I will say I am somewhat familiar with the amount of work when you talk about preparing for those meetings. I don't know if a lot of people realize how much time that is. The success of the meeting is actually dependent on all the prep that you do going into that meeting. And then I really appreciate your example of how you tried to adjust to our new reality with Zoom and accommodating families in that way. But there's a huge amount of work that goes into that. And I think it's really great that within that work that you're doing for family partnership meetings and in the family finding, you know, model in general, when people say, which I know you probably hear a lot, like, here's the name, but they're never going to show up. Part of the work that I know you're doing is getting to like, why is that? Because a lot of times it seems like there's some dynamic within the family that may not have anything to do with the child, that if that could get sorted out, those people will show up to the table or to the Zoom table as it was now. So I just wanted to just make a point of saying that I do understand, especially for I think all of it, the time consuming aspect of it, which is, you know, obviously incredibly worth it when you see the data that you guys have. But I really appreciate the part of your presentation where you point out that a lot of people say, well, here's this person, but they're not going to be involved. And that, you know, that is true in some cases, but you don't just take that, you know, to be the way it is, and you look a little bit deeper into why that may be and pull down some barriers that might be creating that situation. So thank you guys so much. And do others have questions or comments?
I only had one. You said that this was started in just Albemarle County. Have you guys presented on a state level conference? Or, I mean, if this is a way to save CSA and really benefit the kids and the families. And I would just say, I echo everything that everyone else is saying. It's amazing. And congratulations on all the work.
Thank you. I will say Megan and I, and Megan, you can speak to this, we had planned to take this to the International Conference on Family Engagement this year. However, the pandemic hit and that did not happen. But Megan, I don't know if you want to add to that.
You all did present to the regional directors meeting.
We did.
Yes, and we have presented to the, I don't know the formal title, but the CSA coordinators meeting as well. So there's been some sharing of information with partners outside of just Albemarle.
And I'd like to offer some perspective about the kind of the long-standing evolution of this. Way back in the middle 2000s, we were one of the first agencies to implement concurrent planning in foster care, and Kim and I worked very close together during that time. You know, and then that progressed to the state mandating the family partnership meeting, and every step of the way, it's really taken some work among the staff part to make that paradigm shift in terms of really seeing family as capable of making their own decisions about their family, that, you know, fighting the old myth about the apple doesn't fall far from the tree kind of thing. I think that's been a dynamic in child welfare for years to really challenge the notion that that kids are better off by removing them from the family, et cetera. And I'm really proud of our agency because at every given point, we've really been a front runner with that. And I think it's folks like Megan, Kim, and Andrea who have really brought or dedicated their work to really help their other co-workers who struggle maybe with that kind of thinking, you know, and really trying to champion that ideology and that philosophy. So I think, yeah, that's it.
Glad that you said that, Phyllis. And I want to echo that. Like, I am so thrilled to be working with Megan and Andrea because we have a shared vision for what we want, where we want to go and what we believe with families. And it's always better when you have others who are sort of thinking along the same lines with you to be able to affect change with some others who are coming around. So I think we're pretty lucky.
I
I
have
truly
one more
think you all are
question.
pretty special. And I really like Kim when you said, I would like somebody to do that for my children. I always live with that thought. And you have to have it in your heart to think like that. So I encourage you ladies to keep going and whatever we can do to help, like talk to our board of supervisors maybe, and see what we can do about it. That would help.
Thank you.
Had a question?
I did have one more question. You said that it was cost saving measure for CSA funds. Like how, what, is there a percent of, like, what have you seen?
I'd have to pull the financials to kind of show you specifically, but what happens is that that certain costs have a higher match rate, and so I guess I should clarify that where the savings came was the savings in the local match. The overall CSA dollars didn't necessarily go down because we were still using CSA to provide the prevention services, but that has a lower match rate, so we saved on local dollars. So that the more you can keep a child out of care and have to pay placement costs, which are by definition at the higher match rate, the more money that you save. So if you look at our financials, the total CSA dollar hasn't really changed. It's just that the local amount has gone down.
Yeah, it was seen as a cost avoidance measure, which is kind of hard to ultimately kind of quantify because you have to do the but for this investment, then these outcomes would have, were avoided. So just adding on to what Phyllis has said, it was we were confident but not certain. And obviously represented it that way with the pilot, and then improved through experience that it was cost effective. And of course, the benefit to children and families is also there. But to be able to pair those two together, the cost avoidance with the additional benefit to children and families is what ultimately kind of helped make the case, and obviously got support from the board. Plus amazing staff. I mean,
Any other questions for these fine folks?
Thank you very much. I hope that, did you say that you were or weren't able to present? Was there something you were hoping to present to that was more of a national level type thing and you weren't able to because of the pandemic?
Yeah, Megan and Amy Casey, who's another supervisor here, and I went to an innovations and family finding conference in California last year that was just incredible. And we walked out so moved with some of the presentations and initiatives that we were like, you know what, we can do this. We can bring our emergency family finding response. We can do this next year. And so that was kind of what we were hoping to be able to do. However, that did not happen. But I don't think, look at Megan, I don't know that I would still be interested in doing that and sharing what we've learned and what we've developed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe
There's a lot
we can explore submitting a proposal to OCS for the next CSA conference. Because remember, Kim, you and I did the concurrent planning presentation at the LEAD conference, not the CSA, but also at the CSA. So I think there's some two main conferences that would hit, a lot of child serving agencies across the Commonwealth.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, that's great. I think I would definitely encourage you to continue networking and sharing and, finding other localities that might be doing some innovative things that you can learn and grow from. I think it's been probably 12 or 13 years ago, I had some friends from Montana that brought to young adults who had aged out of foster care and to Washington, D.C. And they were making a film about their experiences in foster care and what it was like to age out of the system. And there was a Senate caucus on foster care youth, and we were able to attend. I went to just help carry around heavy camera equipment and set up things and was sort of in the background. But having the two young individuals were supposed to have about like 10 minutes out of the whole time to talk to the senators that were present. And once they started talking, they just abandoned the whole agenda, and they only wanted to hear from the kids because so many of them hadn't ever actually sat and talked to a child who'd been through these different sets of experiences. And the hope there was to get at a national level some attention to the benefits of putting some money into the family finding and the family partnership meetings. And those data sets that we had back then are probably outdated but still relevant, where they were able to show the benefit of having the children have this type of experience creates a more successful, healthy placement for them. And they were able to take some data of the likelihood that a child that goes through this experience in a bad way ends up having a child that also becomes part of the system later in life, or ends up having something to do with having some sort of criminal activity or ending up in jail, or all these terrible outcomes. And that putting this sort of intervention in early puts this person on the correct path, which is obviously what we want to do because that's the right thing to do. But from a financial perspective, and I think that was where they were coming to the Senate, the senators that were present, was that it actually in the long run saves money. And you can look at that from a national perspective or a statewide perspective, that you create this better environment, and the child is less likely to have these sorts of things happen later, that just create more money that gets put to the system for things that this is what we should be trying to spend money on, is doing this intervention stuff that you and your team are doing. So thank you again. And Phyllis will have the slide deck to share with our message out.
Yes. Did it go out with the meeting materials?
Yes.
But I'll send it again with the message out.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else to say? Kim, you had something to say?
I was just going to say, if you think of something after this, we are more than willing to answer any questions that come up. We feel passionate about the work.
Yes, we can tell.
I will also say that Megan actually reached out to me directly about making this presentation. Usually I'm talking to people saying, come on, present to the advisory board. These folks reached out to me, so it goes.
Well, Kim and Andrea deserve credit for all the innovation and expertise they're bringing to serve the families. So we wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. I don't know if we have any other business. I think that Lisa's in the background, I see, so I'll just ask her to send me anything I need to sign, since we approved some of the minutes from past meetings. And then Phyllis, I don't know if you had anything else, or if anyone had anything they wanted to add.
No, just a reminder, if you want to attend the staff meeting, just let me know.
And that's tomorrow?
Next Thursday. Oh,
Next
no.
Thursday. Next Thursday.
No,
What time is the staff meeting?
It's Thursday. It's the day after tomorrow.
Okay.
It's from 8:30 to 10.
8:30 to 10.
So it's Thursday the 15th.
And is that something that, I mean, if I would like to, I don't know if I could make it right at 8:30. Is it okay if we just, would you send us a link and we can just
Yeah,
pop
I'll send
in?
you the Zoom link and you can join whatever time works.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to do that. And you'll get us a message out to the board.
I'll send the PowerPoint and just maybe highlight some of the information. Is there anything you want to highlight from the informational items? They also get all that material too. So.
I don't know about the informational items. I think I would hope most supervisors read through that stuff. I definitely think, and I do think that they look at the slide deck, but I think if it were me and I wanted to highlight something out of what we just heard, even though I am a strong believer that the personal stories are really powerful, some of the data that was there on that one slide that I think she pulled out some of the most important parts of that. I would think that pulling something like that out to add might be nice.
Okay,
It's some pretty powerful data.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely do that.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Guess we'll thank you all we have everyone here. It's very nice to see everyone.
Thank you again for your time and your support for social services.
I like your Halloween decorations, Mary. It's very festive.
Try to keep it interesting for the kids, whatever it takes.
Right. All right. Well, I guess that's it for us, and we'll be back together in a month.
All right. All right.
Thank you.